what it's going to do, and it will go off and build a prototype for us that we can expand upon. I would absolutely do that as your first point of call, because it's quite helpful if you've not used Copilot Studio to have an idea of how all of this is put together. What I'm going to do though first here is I'm going to put in a prompt into this that I have pre-prepared earlier. While I've been talking, that's been covering that. What will happen here is once we create a new agent, then it will go away in the background and provision it. So what you'll have seen on the screen here is it's went and provisioned it, and then once it's done that, a lot of these buttons become available to us. So I'm going to add a system prompt to this. I'll add my icon to this as well, and then I'll add some of the features that it's got access to. I won't run through the different models again because we did that earlier, didn't we, with Paz Assistant, but here we go. Let's paste this in. And this is built with the help of AI. I would absolutely recommend using some of the tooling you've got, such as Copilot Chat, Researcher, Analyst, and so on. Agents that you've got built inside Microsoft 365 that can go off and find the best approach to do something as well, to help you expand upon your system from a context of Copilot Studio agents. Because you might not want to have the longest system prompt when you're building this, but you might want to optimize it so it works well with Copilot Studio. It's focused in a balanced way upon the things that it's going to do. And this has got system prompt for our restaurant growth strategist and operations director. This is an agent that is going to help a manager of a restaurant help build new ideas for marketing initiatives to build in or to bring in new customers. And it's got access to, or will have access to, pick them here, several different tools that's going to give it an idea of what things do they need to sell. You know, what's the reasoning behind trying to bring in more customers? Is it just to hit a KPI, or is it because they've got too much chicken that needs to be sold by the end of the week, or they've got a back order arriving soon of some lovely cakes that they need to get out the door? Whatever that is, then we're asking the agent to go off and understand that by looking at the inventory. So have a look at the things that we need to sell. What are the scheduling issues that we've got? Go and find out all of that information, where often if we're imagining the real life user, that person, the restaurant manager, perhaps their assistant, or they might be sitting down with the head chef and going through the plans for the next week, and they're brainstorming that day. They've got papers all over the place, looking through, computer up, going through an Excel spreadsheet, looking at inventory lists. We're hoping that this is going to do that for them and save them lots of time, but also give them the opportunity to make sure that when they put that forward to management, then that's all the upper management, area managers and so on, that the idea can be challenged and supported by evidence. And we're trying to make sure that they can have their input as they go, and it's a collaborative experience with this strategist. So we've got a fairly straightforward prompt, but it's giving it the idea of what it's got to do as a job. It's giving the instructions. And in Copilot Studio itself, when we're looking at the tools, then we've also got the ability to actually reference these in the system prompt by adding the tool itself into the prompt without actually just trying to say you've got this tool and describing it. But if I use the / here, you'll see that I've got access to variables that might be inputs from topics. I've got access to the topics themselves. I've got access to my list of tools. I've got access to my sub-agents. I can reference them within the system prompt properly, rather than just noting them down inside of this. So I won't do that now, but you should absolutely consider whether you want to do that. I'm also going to switch this to GPT-5 Auto. Now, your results, of course, are going to vary. What I'm hoping with this system prompt and with the agent is that it will use a model router to pick a fast model when it needs to, but when it really needs to get strategic, then it will move to using a reasoning model, and I'll get the best performance balanced with the best reasoning at the right times. However, if you need predictability, if you need to make sure that you're, for example, getting a consistent set of results, if you've not fully tested that model, then pick the one that makes most sense for you. As we heard earlier, GPT 4.1 provides a great balance between the two, but this is a demo, so I'm going to live on the cutting edge. Now, in here, this is where I'm going to add my knowledge sources. So this would be access to a SharePoint library, for example, that's got the Excel spreadsheets. It might be that we've got access to an inventory system and we can go to the back-end database for that. Or it might be that there's a third-party system that has this data in, a CRM system that has some of this data in. So it might be Dynamics 365, for example, that we're going to connect to this as a great knowledge source. Now, Dataverse and Dynamics 365, similar in nature in terms of what we're adding to connect. So for the sake of the demo, I'm just going to add a few different tables and add that. And let's imagine that that's the real set of data sources that hold this information. I don't own a restaurant, so I don't have the data. So I don't mind, for the sake of the demo, just showing you that. So I've got my knowledge source added there. Now I would go into my prompt itself and make sure that the knowledge source is referenced. I'll actually, in real life, I'll actually give this a name. I might set it as an official source as well. That I'll add to the instructions to make sure that this is an authoritative knowledge source. So it said so to the users as they understand this. We can add things like web search as well. We don't need to. Actually, let's add it. We can update the system prompt to give it access to data on the internet, and also say, go and have a look at our local competitors that are based around the area and do the same. Then, of course, I'm going to go and add my name for the agent as well. Now, this is a pretty straightforward agent. It doesn't actually do a ton yet. We will have given it access to the data. We'll have given it access to particular tools. And once I've added my agent icon to that as well and saved it, then it'll be something that we're not looking to give a sub-agent capability to or reference to another agent. Now, the set of tools that I add, again, this is going to fit you and what you need to do. So if you've not seen the pre-training, you'll see that in that we're looking at SharePoint data sources. Here again, I might give it access to Model Context Protocol if I've got an endpoint from a vendor that is going to give me access to their inventory system, or it's going to give me access to something else. Computer use is probably a preview feature that you might want to consider deeply first. You could certainly build some great stuff with it, but it's got all of its own nuances to look into, and also the context of planning, things like shift planning as well. All this sort of stuff is where we can bring this information in from other sources like Microsoft Teams, Planner, and so on. Because what we're going to try and do with this agent is give it that full context of what it needs to know to be able to build things out. And that might be to look and create tasks. It might be to get existing task details from our existing ideas boards that we've got, so it can have an idea for what perhaps staff have posted as great ideas to add themselves. And also understand the scheduling in shifts to be able to do that. Now, for time, I'm going to save and publish this now rather than add all of these tools. And I'm not going to test the agent because we've not given access to the data sources. It's just a quick look to show you what you can do. I mean, it'll try and do it actually. It just won't have the data. So plan for the next week. It can't do it. It will hallucinate more than likely. So be very careful when you're testing it. Be very careful about the data you've given it access to as well. I'm now going to go and imagine that we have given it access to the right data sources. We have given access to the inventory. We've given it access to shifts. All of that's great there. I've updated the system prompt to reference those correctly, so it knows what potentially people are going to ask of it and where to get that data and what tools to use. And then I'm going to go and publish it to the right places. Now, this is going to be available in this case to people, much like if you've done the pre-training, to people who are using Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, because I've already published this, then it's easy to go back in and then add a channel. Publishing, in the concept of Copilot Studio, is saving and publishing a version rather than publishing it to a channel. So we add the channel as the place that it's going to be used in, and that's there's a slight nuance between those different tasks. Now, when we add it here, then we've got the ability to refine the audience for this, because we can share an agent with the whole organization if we want to, or just particular people. I'm going to add this first of all to the channel, and then I can go and have a look at my availability options for where this is going to show. Often I will see with the customers I'm working with that they don't want to publish the agent to everybody on day one. So the information that they put here may be that it's only going to show to certain people, such as show to my teammates, show to the people I'm working with, or give it more specific sets of users as well. And in here, there, I've got the ability to go and I can add. Let's have. If I'm to add it in this, I might add 3 or 4 different users, or actually add a group. And again, if I'm working with customers, they might set particular groups, and they say this is where we can share the agents to. This is perhaps a cohort of users that are going to use and test the MVP. This is a subset of users, perhaps a small cut of early adopters in our restaurant managers group. They've volunteered to test out the agents first before we roll it out to everybody else. That's where I'll add that in, then update the agent itself with those permissions. For now, then this is just going to show for me. I'm not going to be publishing this to a wider audience, but within a short amount of time, this is going to show up over in Microsoft 365 Copilot chat. So I'll be able to see that agent, I'll be able to add that agent and use it. So there's other options though that are available. That could be that you are looking to, I'll just publish that there in the background. It could be that you are looking to make this interact with people over WhatsApp, or it might be that this is going to be something that helps make reservations on the public facing website, for example, in our restaurant scenario. There's a lot of things that Copilot Studio can do. And I certainly find them with customers that actually they're saying, right, this is going to be our tool of choice for agentic use. It might be that there's some use cases where we might want to go over to Microsoft Foundry, but Copilot Studio's got the ability to bring in those agents for us as well. But day-to-day agent use for us, we think this is great because it sits within the Microsoft 365 security boundary, the Power Platform environment security boundaries. It's within a known space. It's using sets of connectors primarily that we may have already assessed for use with Power Platform, tools like Power Automate, Power Apps, and we're not going into a world of the unknown where we might be looking at building our own tooling or using third-party vendors' tools where it hasn't went through that same sort of process. And even in Azure, when you build a custom solution over there, then sometimes for every single solution that you build, you have to go through an underlying process to understand how secure that was built. Some of this has already been done for you when you use Copilot Studio, which helps them accelerate and have the confidence to let end users, people who are not developers, go off and try and build agents themselves, as well. So it's a fantastic solution for that, and really easy to sort of get that out there. But ensure that you're thinking along secure guidelines. You're thinking about the data that's going to be used. It's going to do things in the background to help with that safety, but you always need to think about the underlying data, the tool use, who's going to be using it, the limits that you might want to put on that. For what can be used in the context of either the user or a connection to the data source that you're giving it. So always think about security by default as you build these solutions as well, because Microsoft are doing some of that, but that responsibility is always going to lie with you. And if you're setting this up for your users, the controls that you put at an administrative level to sit in front of that to help protect them. That's my very sort of quick different version of what you might have seen in the training itself. So hopefully that different angle gives you a different view. But now I want to go and start a restaurant with my restaurant growth strategist. So if you see me in the kitchen this weekend shoveling out food to people, then an agent has probably helped me set this up, find a pop-up kitchen place, and I've successfully built another agent to negotiate why this was a great idea with my other half. But with that, I'll hand back.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, Steve. Thank you so much. And big round of applause, everyone. I know we can't hear it, but give it up for Steve, because I think this is a really interesting one. We're going to have 3 groups of people happening right now, I could imagine, post what Steve's just run you through. One, you're on track. You've done the pre-learning. You've got all the access that Steve outlines in the pre-learning, and you've gone, great. You've just shown me around the system. I've got some new ideas. I'm firing. I'm ready to go. That's category 1. Category 2 is, holy moly, I didn't do the pre-learning and now I feel really lost. Right? So that's possible, and that's okay, right? So don't freak out. The pre-learning is there. It won't take long. You've got 90 minutes for your build. It's about 25 minutes worth of pre-learning. I suggest go in and do it. Okay. That'll get you really grounded. Then everything Steve's covered here today will just start to drop into place. You go, I see how that all comes together for me. Now, the third one is that you've tried to start building, but you're hitting an error. That's possible. Now, if you're hitting an error at any point, it's because you don't have the right access. Okay, Steve does outline it in the pre-learning, but just in case you're just sort of going in and playing and you're going, why is it saying I don't have permission for this, or I don't have the right access level for that? It means that you actually need to go and speak to your IT team if you want to continue building in Copilot Studio. So just take that as your little flag. We're not saying don't build in Copilot Studio. If you still want to build there because it gives you the functionality that you're looking for, you just have to go back and get the right permissions and settings. We don't want you to create workarounds, okay? This is really important, that if you're going to build an agent in your business, you do it correctly and you follow the right governance and outlines that your company has set for you in that setting. So really, really encourage you to do that. But if you want to build an agent and you don't have the permissions today, but you still want to build something, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to share my screen now. I'm going to give you a little demo of my own. So what I'm going to show you is Copilot Agent Builder. Now this actually lives within, if you go to m365.cloud.microsoft/chat, you'll come into this space. You'll probably also see it when you're in Teams and you go to the chat function, or you just go to Copilot and you see it in the chat function. And what you will see is this little call out here where it says new agent. Okay, this is like no license required, super light version of how to build an agent. And it's easy, so easy. I'm going to show you the ATO email response assistant that I built in less than 10 minutes. And if you want to do this, you can do this too. This is all part of the Agentathon. If you find it easier to just work in this space and that's more up your alley, we just recommend you to come here. Even I think, Steve, you mentioned it in your course as well, is, hey, come over here if Copilot Studio isn't right for you. So what I did with my prompt here is I just said, hey, I'm new. I'm just joined an accounting firm and I don't know anything about accounting, but I keep on getting all these queries. It's tax time and I need an agent to help me answer all these queries so I don't look dumb in front of my boss, right? That's pretty much what I typed right here into the chat. So very natural language. And what it generated for me, and I didn't edit this, this is my ATO email response assistant. ATO means Australian Taxation Office. And if you haven't picked up, I've got an Aussie accent. So I'm looking at the Australian Taxation Office laws. And I just want it to only pull information from there. Like, I don't want it to make stuff up. I don't want it to do anything else. I just want it to get information from that site that I can share and reference and just keep pointing them back to that site so I can answer these really simple questions instead of bugging my boss all the time. So I'm going to show you behind the scenes. If I go to these 3 radio dots and click edit, this is what it generated for me. Okay, so it created the title and the logo, which is pretty basic, not as good as yours, Steve. The description was similar to mine in terms of how I articulated it, just said it nicer. So it creates a new description. all of the instructions that you saw Steve copy and paste in that he's sort of used AI to generate, it generated them for me. I didn't do this. This was all done by the generative AI just from my one prompt. I did go in and add one thing to it. I added this thing called format because I didn't like that it was just giving me like long text. I just wanted it to have some bolding and some bullet points where it made sense. So I just put that in. Again, my language probably isn't as good as the agent's language that it's actually, or the generative AI's language. It automatically picked up the website. So I mentioned ATO and it went and looked for the website for me. So I just had to validate that was the right website. I didn't have to attach it. It already attached the knowledge source for me. I then said only use this specified source because I didn't want it to go and look for anything else. Just use this one website only. So I toggled that on. I didn't toggle anything else on. I didn't like the prompts at the bottom, the suggested prompts, so I just wrote these myself because these were the common questions I was getting. How do I apply for an ABN? How do I update my bank details? When's the deadline for tax returns? And so I just typed these in, right? Type, done. And then now if I just go, how do I apply for an ABN? I want to start my own business, then it will just generate it for me. It's done. Publish, create, out the box, less than 10 minutes. So don't fret. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed, we've got tools for you. You've got just build somewhere else, right? We've got 3 different places you can build in. Maybe Copilot Studio Builder is exactly what you need to do. All right. All the developers here on the call are going, come on, move on. We know what we're doing. So I'll move on. But that's for everybody else that thinks, whoa, I'm a bit out of my depth. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you, before we head you in to the build session, which is going to start in a couple of minutes, we're going to show you what winning looks like, because we ran this Agentathon last year and we had 2 winners that built using Copilot Studio. So I wanted to show you what that actually looked like in terms of their submissions. So this is the first one. Sabre created this agent that was an EMEA policy navigator. And what it did, it was actually a multi-agent solution, so similar to what Steve was doing in the pre-learning. So he built multiple agents to be able to work with each other that had specialty functions. And it was looking at ways to be able to auto-route any HR policy questions and then dispatch them to the appropriate country specialist for multiple countries to make sure that they could meet their compliance requirements. So super cool. It was fast, it was accurate, and it always cited its sources. So it was a really cool way to be able to reduce that HR workload. And this is an important point. When we judge your submissions for your agent, we're looking for things like how innovative is it? Have we seen this before? Is someone else doing it? Is it new? Is it something that you didn't see Steve do or Narelle do, right? It's something unique. So we're looking for that innovation. The second thing we're looking for is really looking at the usability. So who's the end user? Do they fall in love with this tool? Does it improve their world? Will they come back and use it again? And if you're not sure, a good way to demonstrate that with your submission is share your agent with your peers, seek feedback, and then iterate. So if you mention that you've done those steps, that's obviously going to help you with your submission and get some extra brownie points with the judges. And then finally, the third thing is actually impact. So if you can quantify or qualify, like look at those measures about what sort of demonstrable impact is this having? Is it saving time? Is it improving satisfaction? Are you getting a better net promoter score? Are you getting, an increase in revenue? Like there could be a whole bunch of different measures that your agent could influence. So make sure you're aware of what those measures are that you're looking to achieve. And then if you can actually measure them, include those in your submission, because that's even going to be better, right? If you can actually start to measure them and measure the impact. Because there's no point just creating agents for agents' sake, right? Anyone can create an agent. We're showing you how easy it is. We want you to create agents that are going to be powerful, impactful, that are going to help you do your job better, make you more creative, make the teams around you be able to be more successful. This is a really powerful tool that you have at your fingertips, and we want you to do the best work with it. Okay, so this is example number 1. Example number 2 for you is actually this one by Matthew, and he created this Darty store automation agent. And it was a really cool way of being able to see if a store already existed in an Excel file that he had as like a master file. And then it enabled this sort of guided creation of a new store when it was missing. So it would be able to add that information in. So it used tools and triggers to be able to say, don't just use the agent to chit chat. You know, we can always build a Q&A bot to be able to ask questions, get answers, knowledge base, but go do something with it. And that's where he used those tools that Steve was referencing. So think about those tools. And if you're not familiar with how to use tools to create autonomous actions, then do a little bit more research. You can chat to your fellow, but there's also some great resources that we have in this session as well. If you look in the resources section, that will include for you. But yeah, reduced the manual effort, it improved data quality, it supported analytics, like so many win factors here for this particular example. So well done to both of those winners from last time, and I hope to see some of you guys get up in that winner's circle as well. All right, we're a couple of minutes away now. This is your final slide before we send you over. These are just my top tips, okay? So number one, focus. The whole point of this next 90 minutes is to come up with your idea and start building your prototype. You do not have to complete it in 90 minutes. If you do, fabulous. But the idea is to get you started, and you're around people that can support you. You've got your fellow in your pocket that you can just call on whenever you want, and you've got your MVPs and myself and Steve and Pal all in the chat to be able to answer your questions as well. So make sure that you're spending this time really wisely. We're going to let you have some airspace. We're not going to talk to you. We're not going to try and demo anything else. We're going to put a timer on the screen, and you're just going to build, right? So just focus and get that prototype out the door. Go back to your learning is number two. If you don't know stuff, just go back. Maybe you did it a week ago and you just got to refresh, or maybe you didn't do it at all and you need to do it. So go in and do it. aka.ms/founderslearn if you've already registered. If you haven't already registered, make sure you use the aka.ms/foundersregister. Okay, so that's the only difference between those two links. Like I said, use your fellow. They're fabulous. I love Julia. She's my new best friend. And then we're going to be here to support you in the Q&A. Okay, number 4, just ask questions, go for gold. Judging criteria, 3 categories: innovation, usability, impact. Focus on those. And then what we're going to do at the end of the build session, we're going to come back and we're going to give out a whole bunch of prizes. And Pal is also going to step you through exactly how you would go about submitting your agent through the Founders platform. It's actually in your course, and he's going to show you exactly where you'll find it and how to do it and how to get the best possible outcome. So that's it from me. That's it from Steve. That's it from Pal. We're going to let you be. We're going to let you concentrate, and we're going to pop a timer up on the screen so that you guys can get started. So on that note, your time starts now. Good luck.
To this Commander session, which is designed for developers, IT pros, and advanced makers who want to build intelligent agents using Microsoft Copilot Studio. Now, to do this, you are going to need the right licensing, such as M365 Copilot licensing, Copilot Studio credits, pay-as-you-go, prepaid message packs, or equivalent. And you should have access to a Copilot Studio environment with data connections and the ability to work with connectors. You are going to need environment admin permissions as well if you're going to create a new environment for agent development for this. And ideally, you'll have search administrator permissions to create Copilot connectors too. Now, the right set of permissions for this should be Cloud Application Administrator for the app registration in Entra ID, but a global admin must grant consent for all of the permissions. And if we're going to be publishing applications into Microsoft Teams, then you'll need Teams admin permissions too. So with that long list of permissions that you will need, then this is a chance to, before you start, make sure that you've either got these permissions up front or you speak to your IT admin and ask for this to be set up for you, because you will absolutely have a much better time going through some of this if you've got all of this in place before we begin. For more information about licensing, go to the Copilot Studio licensing page on Microsoft Learn. Now, if you are earlier in your journey and you are thinking, well, Copilot Studio is the thing for me, have a look at Copilot Studio Lite. This is the Explorer level. That lets you build simple agents. You don't need administrator access or enterprise connectors to get started. But with these full enterprise permissions, you can work at Commander level and you can build enterprise connected, secure multi-agent solutions. So let's have a look a little bit more about what Copilot Studio can do. Now, Copilot Studio can handle thousands of scenarios, from employee support to multi-step workflow automation. It really is the enterprise solution that I'm seeing enables lots of different businesses from all sizes to actually use the benefits of the Power Platform beneath, the enterprise connectivity it provides, with cutting-edge, groundbreaking agents that you can design inside the business to answer questions, ground in your organization's knowledge, trigger workflows, call external APIs, connect to MCP servers, integrate with Microsoft 365, and automate multi-step processes. But today we're going to focus on one example to teach the end-to-end fundamentals. So projects will be something that I'm sure you're familiar with. They're the lifeblood of all organizations. And one of the hardest things that a project manager has to do is collect all the information and gather a status report so they can share with the whole team what's happening. And you might find yourself contributing to that. It's quite a time-consuming thing. So we're going to use an agent to try and make sure that that is a little bit easier. So we'll have an agent that helps gather some of the status reports, but also the project manager's team, they need to aggregate some of that information together as well. So we'll build a couple of agents that work together to gather status reports and to aggregate some of that information together to be able to give a better overview of what's going on. We'll start with the status report agent, and I'll jump into Copilot Studio and show you what I'm going to do. I'll be giving it a new name, and then I'm going to be giving it its set of core directives, its instructions that govern exactly what it's going to do as it works through the tasks that we've given it. So I'm going to click and choose to create a new blank agent, and we'll give it a name. Now, of course, you don't have to call every agent an agent. You could call it something else if you like, or call it something about what it does. But in this case, we will call it an agent. Status report agent 23. There's no particular reason for the number, but why not? And in the instructions, we've got these core directives. Now, I'm pasting these in to save a bit of time so you don't have to wait, and I'll explain briefly what these do. We're going to give it the instructions so it knows exactly what the output should look like. So if I look further down on the screen, you'll see that I've got a fairly comprehensive list of what it will do. From what I pasted in, then I can go through that if I like, and I can make the formatting a little bit better. It doesn't actually matter though, but it's going to give us the activities, it's going to give us the blockers, it's going to give us that table of information that can be used and processed. And it's going to have some mandatory things that it's going to do as well. If you say it must do something, then that should ensure that it does do it. So we're going to say always ask for red, amber, green status with a reason why in that status as well. So if somebody's saying my project status is amber, we've got these risks, why? We want to know why. We want people to give us that information. Otherwise the PM, the project manager, is going to have to go all the way back, ask the person who submitted it, and it may take as long, if not longer, than without the agent. So all those little things that you would need to think of, or your project manager would need to think of, the problems that they usually have, the things that are usually missed, we're feeding into the agent. So if they must go back and ask for something, if it'd be useful if they had that information, then we make it clear. And if we're thinking about how it's going to talk to the user, then you can say that as well. So if we want it to be conversational, friendly, if it's perhaps got a voice that matches your business, so it's got to be on brand, then say so. Give it the examples that it can use so that it gets the tone right. In this example, we want it to be clear, we want it to be complete in the reports that it provides, and we want it to work in a fairly friendly, collaborative way when it's talking to users. Now, there isn't a specific order that the instructions need to go in, but often you will perhaps have any reinforcement actions, especially if it's a very, very long prompt, at the end. So a common technique might be to say, if you're perhaps try it once or twice, it's not always consistent, you must do this, this, this and this, add that to the end. In this case, it's a fairly straightforward agent. Copilot Studio is pretty reliable as well. Now, before I save this, I'm going to add some extra information as well. So in here we can choose things like the agent's model. In this case, we could change it to a different version if we wanted to try an experimental model. You can see that we've got external models as well from providers like Anthropic too, but we've also got triggers. Now, triggers are something that, if you've got the right permissions, if the right connectors are enabled in your DLP policies, the Copilot Studio connector for example, then you can use triggers to make the agent start when something happens. That could be if an email is received or an action happens on a SharePoint list or similar. In this case though, this is going to be an agent that people use. They find, they go into, and then they start utilizing. So we don't need to add the triggers into this part. If we're going to ground it with information, then we can add the knowledge sources here as well. We don't need to at this point, but what we would be able to look at is Microsoft 365 data, such as SharePoint or OneDrive. We can add rows of data in SQL, Dataverse. This is really where we get the real benefits of the Power Platform. It's connectors into different services to pull that data in. We get the benefit of Copilot connectors as well to give that extra layer of knowledge. And if you're a developer and you were using Model Context Protocol, so MCP servers today, perhaps you've got a third-party service and they're providing an MCP endpoint, it's fully authenticated, and you want to pass through the authentication of your users using their Entra ID credentials, and that could be perhaps to find out information from your HR system, or perhaps there's another project reporting system that we're pulling data into here. Then tools are the place to do that. And you'll see that there's some really useful new built-in tools for access to perform actions and retrieve data from Microsoft 365 itself. Microsoft certainly leading by example there. And as you'll see a little bit later on, we can connect agents together. So we can add an agent into this part. What we can do at the end here though is make it easier for people to get started, because when they start talking to it, they might not know what to say. They know it's a status report engine. Are they going to say hello? Well, this is where we give it those ideas. This is effectively what gets shown when somebody starts using the agent. So in here I can add a suggested prompt of generate my status report. Now the difference between title and prompt is sometimes the actual prompt that you want to put in could be a lot longer. In this case they're the same. So I do that, I press save, and I'm pretty much ready to go on that. So I'm starting the test agent session, and my status report agent 23 is here to help. I'm going to ask it to generate a project status report, and it's going to come back to me using the power of the large language model. So this will be generated based on perhaps the GPT 4.1 that we have running this under the hood. And you'll see it is quite clever in that what it's been able to do is interpret what we've given in the prompt for all the things that we need and put it forward to the user in a fairly consistent way, in a conversational way that is actually quite like a real project manager. So let me ask it a question that I might ask a real project manager was I to see this prompt. Please provide information for each section, confirm if any of these should be left blank. Can I just leave out anything that I don't need? I think, I'm the user. I'm looking at this and thinking, I don't want to have to say blank, blank, blank for all the ones that I don't have. And maybe it will tell me otherwise and say, nope, you'll need to tell me exactly what you don't need. But nope, indicate none or leave the sections blank. Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to give it an answer to that, which was let's say I am giving my status reports every week. The agent's new, and I was used to just pasting it into a Teams message to the PM, and they'd do the rest. And I pasted it to them, and they said, "No, use the agent." So I'm starting to use the agent, and I paste it into there. I was hoping it would go through and perhaps format that for me. Well, let's see what it does. It has done exactly that. It's just confirming the bits that I haven't put in, which is the current status. I'm going to say green, no problems, and hit enter. And then that is the agent going through its several different steps, knowing what it's got to achieve at the end, and working towards that goal step by step, asking questions to the user until it gets exactly what it was set out to achieve. Back in status report agent 23, then you'll see that we've had some success testing it. We're happy with this, and we need to publish it before we go on to the next step. So what we'll be doing is publishing the agent, and the next part of this will be building the tool that it works with. So the PM status aggregator agent is going to work alongside our status report agent, and what the PM status aggregator will do is act as the assistant to the project manager. It's going to go around and it's going to get all of the right information that needs to be put in one place, because you'll see in the status report agent there wasn't an endpoint for the status report. It had a conversation with the user, it asked them what they were doing, got the status report, but where did it go? Well, this is where the second agent comes in. The second agent is the one that's initiating the status agent, the status report agent, and it's then going to take the information that they provide to it and it's going to add it to a SharePoint list. So when I gave you the example of the status report agent and I said, imagine I'm the user, I write this long complex report, I give it to the person that I usually work with in Teams, and they then pull that apart, and then they have to put it into what was a SharePoint list. They have to work out whether it's red, amber, green. They have to pull out all the different points, and then we've used AI to do that. We've used an agent to do that. And without this next step, then somebody would have to manually copy and paste all of that into this SharePoint list. And that's why we'll have this connection in place. With our published agent, then that gives us a published agent that our next agent in the chain can use. So if I go over into Copilot Studio again and go to my list of agents, I'll choose create a blank agent, and this one I'll call the PM Status Aggregator 23. Once I've given it the name, I'll press save, and this is going through a more complex set of steps potentially because it's using a connector to SharePoint Online. We'll have a choice of different ways of doing this. One of these can be using the Power Platform, where it's got the traditional connectors to perform specific tasks, or we can use the Model Context Protocol or MCP server as the endpoint that it connects to. When we're using an MCP server, then that has the ability for the large language model to go in and ask what facilities are on offer from an endpoint. So they're easier to use, but we'll also have to be more careful about how they're used. And because it's going through several different steps, it's asking an agent to do something, it's initiating that via its own protocols, it's then going to connect to and submit the data somewhere else, then we might want to consider giving it a newer model as well. What we might want to give it is a reasoning model. And there's a few different ones available here, but if we're to use GPT-5 Auto, for example, then we've got a reasoning model that's going to, before it enacts any tasks or before it creates any outputs, it's going to think through step by step how it's going to get to its end goal. That can often be very helpful in making sure that it's consistent, follows the prompts accurately, and provides the right results as well. So if you're very clear all along the way that it must review this, it must go back and check on itself, a reasoning model is the perfect way of doing that. Like the last agent that we had, I need to give it instructions, otherwise it simply won't know what to do. Here's some I prepared earlier, and as you'll see, that it's giving it a job title effectively. You're an expert program manager that can combine the status reports into the EDTI site in the consolidated project reports list. You should take the 5 most recent items and combine them into a single view of updates this week, key blockers, summary and overall status, and it shows the output that it should provide there. So we're giving it its job effectively. This is the thing that we could ask somebody to do and it should be able to achieve. To be able to do this, we'll need to add the actual tool that it's going to use, and you'll see that I've got a variety of Power Platform connectors. These might be a mix of premium connectors and standard connectors. These will be filtered via the data loss prevention policies that are set up in your tenant, and you've got the ability to add new tools as well. If that facility has been given to you again by the admin, a new tool will be an API endpoint, a URL that you'll put in that will have a schema of the target, and we've got Model Context Protocol, so a protocol by Anthropic that allows the endpoint, the tool at the other end, to describe itself to the large language model in a way that can be understood. In this case, we'll be looking for SharePoint Online, so we'll be looking for the SharePoint Online lists MCP server. That is going to give all of the abilities of a multitude of different Power Platform connectors in one place. You'll see that we've got a connection set up already. Now that connection doesn't flow through to the end user. When you publish this and it's used by somebody else, then it will use their credentials rather than yours or mine in this example. That's very important to make sure that you do. You don't want to save credentials into a particular agent, and you need to understand that the permissions to that list will also need to be given to the user that's going to have access to the agent itself. Now, if we're doing this in the real world, then a key thing that you might want to do is go through the tools available and trim them back so that it has less permissions than the actual user using this. So for example, if you don't want to create an actual list itself but just items, then we might untick create a new SharePoint list on our site. Now the instructions are in place as such to say you're only adding to a list, that list, but you might want to make sure for your own safety's sake that it has only the specific permissions that it needs. Now once that agent has had the correct parts of it fitted, then I can go onto the agents tab here and then add the agent that it's going to connect to. And this is where that status agent that we created in the last steps comes into play. So the last part of that, where we published it, makes it available in this list here. You'll see status report agent 23 listed, and then that's going to attempt to connect to it, and I can give it a description and then choose add and configure, and you'll see that it has examined what the agent does. It's got the list of instructions that it's going to use, as you'll remember from the last steps, and once that's added, then I've got my multi-agent setup. Now in the world of AI engineering and agents, then a multi-agent setup has been quite a complex thing to build. We've just built one in seconds here, where two are going to talk to one another. We've got one that's going to effectively orchestrate the work of the other, collect the information that it's done, and this separation is also going to give us a layer of security as well, because we're not trying to use one agent to perform lots of different tasks and lots of different steps. We're expecting that if it can't provide the right output to the agent that it's connected to, then it should stop or it will have an error. So we're giving it a little bit more safety along the way as well. So using agents, connecting them together, use it when it's worthwhile, but in this case it makes a lot of sense to do it this way. Our last task on the status aggregator is to go in and give it some of those suggested prompts. So this is what the users will see when they see this agent and wish to interact with it. So we're going to have the key thing that it's going to be able to do, so aggregating reports, generating lists of top 5 items and so on. So I'll just pop some of these in right now. So I'm going to give it rewrite my status, and you'll see that in this case, that where it's a longer prompt than a title, we're actually going to give it an actual variable to add in. So in here we see status report, where it's going to give the output from the agent itself, and this log status report update, we're going to add in the prompt that's going to be added in at that stage as well. And again, we'll save those, and we should be ready to go with our multi-agent test scenario. I've added my suggested prompts, and now it's time to test this out. So I'm going to try and log my status update, and I'll send that, and it's going to go through and it's going to connect to the MCP server. So sometimes that can take a little time. The first time it connects, you might get prompted to allow access to it as well, and that might whir away and say in progress. And then once that's finished, then we'll add in the right details. And this is where we're using that multi-agent scenario, where my PM status aggregator, I'm interacting with that, and it's now going and it's going to use my agent that I created in the first step, the status reports. So once it's used the status report agent on my behalf, it will then take that data that's been reformatted and output by the status report agent, and then it's going to go and put it and add it in at the other side. So I'll put in my status report that's going to show what I've been up to over the last week, and like it did earlier, it's going to ask me whether that's red, amber or green. So I'm just going to type in and think I think it's amber this week. We've got a bit of a problem. And that'll whir away for a little bit longer. Once that's complete, what we'll see when we're testing this here is that it's successfully connected using the list MCP server over onto SharePoint Online. And if I just go in here and refresh the list, then you'll see successfully added as me that new item. Absolutely fantastic. So we're quite happy with that, and our next step is to publish this. So if I want to, then I can choose where this agent's going to go, and this is where I might be selecting the channels. So if I want to publish this into Teams, if I wanted to publish this into SharePoint, then this is the place to go. So for example, if I've got my enterprise digital transformation initiative site, and I thought, right, well, this is where people are going, this is where they're going to add these status reports in, then it might be that I'm looking to create a SharePoint channel connector based agent, which is the formal name for this, by picking SharePoint as a channel in the list. If I want this to be a web app, much like you can see on the screen on the right, where it is a separate web app, it could run in another place, then that's where you might pick one of the channels like that. But of course, if you're using web apps, if you're using any of the non-Microsoft 365 native ways of publishing agents, then you might have to consider authentication as a separate topic, because publishing an agent to perhaps your external website, the folk who are logging on there, they won't have your credentials and so on. So be very, very careful about the different channels you use. Always have a conversation with your IT department into what is or isn't suitable. In this case, we're going to create a Teams and Microsoft 365 Copilot agent. So first we'll press publish. That doesn't actually publish it to Teams and Copilot. It publishes the version of the agent that we've got. That means that we can make further changes to the agent before publishing a newer, up-to-date version. After that's published, then we can choose the different channels that it's going to be available in. And this is where it gets really, really interesting, because you've got options that do range from native apps, WhatsApp, Slack, Telegram, Twilio, email even as well. It's where you could automate all of the internal, external, or the passing the parcels type interactions between different parts of your organization, between different organizations altogether, and even business to consumer type operations as well. Our published agent, in this case, we're going to keep it relatively simple, and this is where we'll add a channel so that it has a channel of access in Microsoft 365 Copilot and Microsoft Teams. So this is going to show alongside other tools like researcher agents, like the analyst agent, those pre-built agents, and these will show for the IT administrators who are looking after the solution in Agent 365. With that channel added, I can now go over to the M365 Copilot tab. Now, bear in mind that this might not show immediately for you. After you publish it to a channel, sometimes it can take a little bit longer, so it may or may not show on the screen for us, but don't despair if it doesn't on your side. So I'm going to press all agents and see if I can see any new on the list. You'll see your agents. I've got researcher, analyst, a HR assistant, and I can press see more. If you don't see it immediately, just try a quick refresh on the browser, and then you might see it in the list. And lo and behold, we've got it in the list on screen here. So we've built this multi-agent setup in Copilot Studio. We've built a project status report agent where we've got the part of it that speaks to a user. It collects the status report from them. It makes sure it's in the right format. And then we've got this thing that's wrapping it around. We've got this second agent that is the thing that we'll all interact with, and actually it's the thing that's going to go and collect the information, use another agent to format the status report, our first agent, and then it's going to go and use Model Context Protocol to connect to SharePoint Online, to connect to a SharePoint list and bring that information together. And it's got some additional features as well for summarization and project reporting built in out of the box. And you'll see in Copilot Studio we've not had to lift our finger and write a single line of code to achieve this. We've not had to even tell it the correct locations for something. Some of the things it's been able to do by itself by giving it clear, correct directions like you'd give to a person. So what we can build with this is simple agents. We can publish them straight to users with the right permissions, and it's got features that wouldn't be available to you if you're using other solutions other than Copilot Studio. We've got the safe underpinnings of Microsoft 365 in the Power Platform and that low-code platform connectors that are built in and available already to your enterprise with Power Automate and Power Apps straight in Copilot Studio as connectors that they can use with agents to build powerful agents in no time at all.